So the title is, Should Women Have to Pay? Now, it's a general term, but women feel, in general, that they should not have to pay. Now, I'm going to get some comments in the comment section of women saying, I pay for all my bills and blah, 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 right? Now, change the situation, and that same woman is going to say, well, of course the man has to pay. Of course the man should pay. He's not a man if he doesn't pay. Well, all of these notions comes from thousands of years of men being the breadwinner and the woman simply existing. Literally, just existing. What a lot of people don't get, though, is that when humanity first popped up, and I'm talking about humans, I'm talking about Africa, humans, blah, 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 we adopted the notion that the woman should stay home and that the men will confront any sort of dangers, deal with any sort of environmental, what have you. And ultimately, society grew, the man was the breadwinner. Now, I want you to contrast human coming forward versus Neanderthal. Neanderthal thought that women should be right next to the man, or the female Neanderthal should be right next to the male Neanderthal. Well, what did that mean? That meant that the female Neanderthal, who also was the bearer of the children, would also suffer from any dangers that they encountered, any sort of anything, any sort of environmental, any sort of encounters where they could encounter danger, and the female suffered the consequences. You don't see many Neanderthals walking around anymore, do you? Oh, and I'm not talking about the genetic DNAs. For your information, a lot of people, Europeans aren't 100% Neanderthal, nor even 50%. They're some distant. What makes their skin paler than Africans was a completely different set of people, which survived the cold winter. So when Europeans who were black went into the cold climates, they had to mix with these very pale tribesmen who survived in the cold. And there you have it. So they're not, calling them Neanderthals isn't quite the correct terminology. Now, humans, I'm talking about the Africans again, back in the ancient times and ancient prehistory. Prehistory simply means before European history. In the prehistoric times, the division of labor, that the women should stay home and do their jobs and that the men should go out and do their jobs, afforded humans a lot of prosperity and a lot of coming forward. Why am I going over this history? Because people don't understand why we're here. How did we get to 2017? And a lot of people are trying to revamp history and say that women were oppressed and women were downtrodden and blah, 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 and woe is me and blah, blah, blah. And that's terrible. It's not terrible. It's what made humans survive for hundreds of thousands of years. At least 100,000 years, right? We survived and strived where other beings, and we were not the only beings on the planet, prospered and were successful. The whole division of labor, male versus female, was very prosperous to humans. Not just to women, not just to men, to humans. So we come to 2017. Should she pay? Let me give you a story here that's running around in the news cycle. Woman is riding her bike. She's cycling, she's on what people would know as a 10-speed. And the presidential motorcade happens to come by her. Well, being the good liberal that she is and watching CNN and believing all of the hype and all the propaganda and so forth and so on, she flips off the motorcade of the president of the United States, the leader of the free world. I think we can dispense with the free world thing since Putin is, in fact, quickly becoming our ally. We disagree on a couple of points, like North Korea, but Putin is quickly becoming our ally. And Russia, in turn, is becoming our ally as well. So there is no free world, unfree world, except for, what people, how they treat their country, but we won't get into that. She flips off the leader of the world. How can I say that? Because he went to a international meeting and they called him the leader of the world. Now, there's a lot of propaganda going around that the world dislikes President Trump. That is not only far from truth, but it's an out-and-out lie. The world respects Trump. It is the mainstream media of the United States, internal to the United States only, that insults him on a daily, hourly basis. Anybody else says the United States is back, and we applaud that. Now, these are the people who are not establishment people. You know what the word establishment means in a political context? If you don't, go look it up. All of those country leaders who are part of the establishment dislike him, which is probably where the mainstream media is getting its marching orders. But anybody else outside of that establishment is applauding President Trump and saying that the United States is back and we're going to get stuff done. And that's the whole point, right? He's done more in 11 months than the last president did in 2 terms, 8 years. He's getting stuff done. Wall Street breaking records. Bitcoin, Ethereum also breaking records. They're now have turned around that the Federal Reserve Bank has called Bitcoin legitimate and put out feelers to start trading in Bitcoin or doing something, which nobody's really in control of Bitcoin, which is something that they like, but I don't know if they understand that nobody's in control of Bitcoin. They can buy all the Bitcoin that they want and they'll turn it into a Wall Street mechanism where a very few powerful people make all the moves, which then sways the market of Bitcoin, just like they sway the market of Wall Street. But if you look and there's no volume, which is one thing that you should always pay attention to, look at the volume. Are there millions of people trading that stock? Or are there only a couple of hundred? It doesn't matter what the stock price is if only a couple of hundred people are trading it. That's the same thing that you should look at in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Are there millions of people trading in Bitcoin and Ethereum? Well, they put this lady who made the obscene gesture, and it is an obscene gesture. I know that the bar has been lowered for our country to such a degree that we have Miley Cyrus out there. I have a neighbor who just, if you mention the word Miley Cyrus, she goes completely off, talking about how, what a terrible woman she is, what a terrible human being she is. They had this woman who made the obscene gesture. I don't care what you think about it. I mean, the one guy made a comment saying, when Obama's motorcade came by him, he turned his back. And that was his form of protest or showing his displeasure towards the Obama administration. And he said, that's the most that I would ever do. I would never make an obscene gesture to the President of the United States. Well, they have this woman all over the news, on the morning talk shows, on the Today Show. And then, of course, a few articles said that's exactly where that belongs. It belongs on the Today Show. Stuff that isn't actually news and stuff that really isn't fit to really print. It's a interesting side story. It's not a main event. And some of the conclusions was that we would never want to squelch such, lighthearted stories. It says, but the consequences of her making an obscene gesture of her putting it on her Twitter, of her changing her background to show the picture that was taken of her flipping off the presidential motorcade, got her fired. And then the question, the Today Show says, was it legal for them to fire it? Was it right for them to fire her? And she said, a lot of times what's legal and what's right are not the same thing. They are completely legal with firing me, but it wasn't the right thing to do. Now, where are her morals? Well, were her morals for making obscene gestures to the President of the United States? So we're talking about a person whose moral compass is so far down the chart that she's making obscene gestures to the presidential motorcade. And then for her to say it wasn't the right thing to do to fire me, but, and here's the big but here, and here's the whole crux of this video, but I'm okay with them firing me. I'm not really bothered by it. Now, let's turn and see what her husband has to say about her making obscene gestures to the President of the United States, putting it on her Facebook, and consequently getting fired from her job. I bet he's not happy at all. I bet he's very much bothered by it. And I bet any sound thinking woman, any logical thinking woman, any responsible woman would say she is out to lunch. And if she's alone, I didn't see whether she was married or not. If she's married, she's irresponsible to her family. She's irresponsible to her husband, because this is 2017. This is not 17 and 17. This is not 1917, where she can just sit back and do nothing and it's all right. Hubby will bring home the bacon, and yes, sometimes fried up in the pan, because the propaganda against men is so terrible that they won't even tell you that a lot of men in marriage are the ones who come home and cook because they married the wrong woman. They married somebody who's not going to be a partner. And a study came out and said that even with women working, most women who are married and work keep their entire paycheck to spend on themselves. They do not contribute to the household whatsoever. Now, I want to hear from women. Do you think that is okay? Or worse, I did a video about the anonymous letter where the guy said, honey, you need to get back to work. You're asking me to still have the Lexus and 3 other cars that we don't really drive in the driveway. You want us to live in a 12-bedroom house, and you haven't gone to work since we had our first kid. And that the kid is now going off to college, and you still want to live in this 12-bedroom house, driving the Lexus. Get back to work, or there's going to be a talk that we're going to have, and there's going to be some dire consequences. Now, he didn't say dire consequences. He says, you're killing me. The stress of working this high-paying, very stressful job. So all of you who want the high-paying job, understand. They don't pay you for you to sit around. They don't give you $125,000 a year, $300,000 a year for you to sit around. A lot of times, you never really stop working when you make that much money. Or even worse, if they're paying you millions of dollars a year, you don't really have a life. And yes, you go out to parties, but you're forced to go to those parties. You're expected to go to those parties, and you're expected to dress a certain way, behave a certain way, and not make obscene gestures to the President of the United States motorcade. She is not bothered from losing her job. How many of you men would be upset if your wife came home and said, I got fired because I flipped off the mayor. I flipped off City Councilman Smith. I flipped off the President of the United States, and my job saw the pictures on my Facebook and fired me. Are you Are you mad at the job, or are you mad at her for being such a foolish woman? In this day and age, we have women still thinking that they should not work at all. At all. And now this goes contrary to all of this women independence, feminism, blah, blah, blah. And then feminism is the main one that is preaching what I'm about to talk about here, that the man should pay for the child. Wait a minute. I'm not saying he should pay his part. I'm saying they're saying he should pay 100%. I have story after story after story of the man working, getting a divorce, and the able-bodied, very healthy, very young, very capable woman being completely unemployed, and they garnish his wages to pay for child support. She is not supporting the child at all, and even worse, taking the money and still not supporting the child, so that the man has to come over on his visitations and take care of anything that the child actually needs. Should the woman have to pay? It makes no sense in 2017 to retain this whole, I'm a woman, I shouldn't have to work because the man is supposed to bring home the bacon. Those days are over, honey. Those days are completely over. Every able-bodied adult has to work. Why? Because you ruined it. And by you, I mean women. You ruined it. And by women, I mean from 45? When they said, hey, your husbands are off to war, you should come work at the factory. And you all said, okay. And the malls blew up and the shopping centers blew up because women had money of their own. And because they were very used to a very leisurely life, they went shopping and spent all of their money. And when the men came back, they now found that the labor pool had doubled. So they paid people less. Yes, you understand that? If I have two people to pick from, as the employer, I now can say, I'm going to pay half of what I used to pay. And I'm not going to give anybody a raise. Why? Because I have thousands of people to choose from now. And I'm going to choose the cheapest person I can. Because labor cost is like 70% of the expense of a company. I would be a fool not to choose the cheapest person. And because women now work in the workforce alongside men, I am going to get the cheapest person I can possibly find, because there's twice as many people in the workforce now. You did this. Your supposedly feminist leaders didn't tell you that you are the ones who destroyed the very thing that you were actually benefiting from, aka patriotism. But on the other hand, out of the other side of their neck, they're talking about the man should pay. He shouldn't be a deadbeat. When in fact, women are the biggest deadbeats of raising the children or taking care of the children financially. Fighting tooth and nail to make absolutely sure that the man has to pay 100% for the child and for you, and you not even working, not even holding down a part-time job, nothing. And I told you before, you would not want me as a judge. You could not come before me and talk about the man has to pay and you not have a job. I would award 100% of the custody to the man. Why? Because he can take care of him. He has the means to take care of the child. And you're shucking and jiving in front of me in a court of law. You serious? And you shouldn't pay? You should be forced to go get a job. And this is what it was before. Before this feminist movement, this is what it was before. They said custody should go to the man because the man is the one in the right frame of mind, right financial position to take care of the children. Children are an expense. Let me repeat that. Children are a burden that you have to pay for. That's all. As far as society is concerned, children are a burden. They're a burden on healthcare. They're a burden on this entire school system that we have to pay for somehow, in whatever form that takes. And now it's a bunch of propaganda that actually make you dumber or more dumb than actually smarter or train you in anything. Children are an expense. That's it. The government has zero care about nurturing a child. If they did, our school system would be nurturing. And the school system would care about where this child is going to end up in the future. But instead, it produces unthinking, illogical children into adults. The government doesn't care about who cuddles more with a child. Doesn't care. I don't care what the politicians say. So then, if the government only cares about health care of children, cost, welfare of children, cost, then the logical person to get the child should be the man. That's how it was before. And the man could afford a full-time nanny to come in the house and take care of the child, and the nanny would only care about taking care of the child. That's her job. These women who say that they're more nurturing, which is a lie. If she is battling, fighting tooth and nail to get as much custody and to get as much money from the father of the child and to destroy the relationship that the child has with the father, clearly she's not more nurturing than the father, by definition. And don't give me this, there are fathers who don't want to pay for children, fathers who don't care about the children. That is a minuscule, and I'm talking about less than 1%. They actually found in a study that men were more nurturing. How did they find this? They tested men and women and a baby and made the baby cry, and they found that the man responded to the crying quicker than the woman. Now, I want you to think about that. I'm not saying that the man went over there and cuddled the baby, but the man responded in whatever way much faster and more immediately than the woman. It also shows you that the woman doesn't care about the child, that she's into her own world, her own whatever. And this happened over and over and over and over and over. So they found that by their definitions, and it wasn't just child crying, by their definitions that 60% men are 60% more nurturing than women. How did we get to this point? Well, we're raising women to think for themselves, about themselves, concerning themselves. That does not include children. Should women have to pay? I'll leave that question up to you. Should she have to pay alimony? I did a video about New Jersey changing and deleting the alimony from divorce. Alimony was paid to the woman to keep her in the style that she is used to. Well, with the whole reversal of the job market being pro-women, meaning more women are hired than men, and women getting better jobs than men, because that's the thing to do for companies, and companies get a kickback from the government. Did you know that? Women were making more than men in New Jersey. So, a strict reading of the law says that whoever makes more has to pay for the other person's lifestyle. It was creeping up on 51% of men in divorces collecting alimony from women because the women were making more. Oh no, we can't have that. The feminists went to the lawmakers, they went to the judges, they went to whomever would change the policy, and they abolished alimony, abolished it. And by the time they got to it, it was nearing 60% paid out to men in divorces. Should the woman pay? That's what the law says, right? It applies across the board. It applies across the board. If you get a divorce and it was a woman and husband made children, should the woman be forced to go get a job before she can even realize any part of visitation or any part of any sort of child support? And don't give me that, oh, my husband didn't even show up to the, I don't want to hear that. Why? Because that's minuscule. It almost never happens. Just because it happened to you doesn't mean that the other 99% of divorce proceedings go exactly where both parties show up and both parties speak and both parties battle for custody of their children. I told you that Judge Judy said the law says it should be joint custody. Nobody has to pay alimony at all, alimony or child support at all, but that these judges have now been influenced because a lot of them are political. They have to run for the office, so they have to appease the special interests that put them in office. And more people donate to women. Why? Because they're women. Than men. Why? Because they expect men to just have money. And the judges then are deciding that the woman gets, it's not because judges like you. It's not that the judges think that women are more nurturing. That doesn't come into the question at all. That's something that CNN says. That's something that these political hacks say. It's something that these female bloggers say. That has nothing to do with it. The state isn't concerned with nurturing. And you're not nurturing, as per scientific study. Judge Judy said it's supposed to be joint custody. Why? Because you jointly made it, the child. If you like these videos, leave a like button. If you're going to subscribe, make sure that you click the notification bell. YouTube is trying to phase out the subscription, which a lot of times does not notify anybody at all. And the notification bell sometimes works. It works better than the subscription method. And for all of you who are already subscribed, make sure you click the notification bell because you're not getting notified. I'm actually going to double up on my video stuff because I need the money. And I have all of these sources I've just been holding back. If you want me to do financial videos here on the open channel and not just on Patreon, which I'm at patreon.com/Shakaama, leave a comment saying, I want financial videos and I'm willing to pay for it on Patreon to promote it on the channel. And I'll have it on the channel for free. The financial videos are really meant for you to take the information and use it, not just to watch the video. They're not that special anyway. Like the video. Thank you all for watching.